Hello everyone, and this is my review for WWE NXT on February the 3rd, 2016. This wasn't a bad NXT. Wasn't anything great by any stretch of the imagination. I particularly did like the main event of the show, but let's go ahead and start off right at the beginning with the Von Villains and the Hype Bros. This is kind of the semi-return of the Von Villains where we've been seeing vignettes recently. And it's hard to really say much has changed with the Von Villains in any way, because you kind of got an indication of a change of some kind, but for the most part, like, their entrance was kind of the same. The biggest difference so far, and I guess we'll see this when they start cutting more promos down the line here, that they were coming out with a more aggressive style and maybe a more heelish type style. But in the end, just that was pretty much all you really saw from them this week. You didn't really get much different what you had been seeing up until they had kind of left beforehand. So we'll see how those things change over the next week. But again, like in this case, it wasn't much different than what we had seen in the past. The backstage interview they did with Carmella was a pretty decent one. Again, another way of trying to put her over a little bit more. And of course, the aspect of the match with her and Emma before her match with Bayley was also kind of put her over and make her a little bit more of a viable threat going into that match. The overall match was pretty good. I don't think they kind of made her come off a little bit more lucky in the end than anything by having her win with a backslide instead of having her win more in a decisive manner, which is what I was thinking they would probably go with more here, have her win a little bit more decisively, but they had her win with a backslide instead. So I think, having her win and be on a roll makes her that little bit of a viable threat, but they didn't really have her win in the terms of a more decisive way of winning, which would have probably worked out a little bit more for her in building into that match for next week with her and Bayley. But we'll see how they have her come off in that match, and see how that match actually comes off in general there. See if you get any kind of turn or anything like that. I doubt that's what you're gonna get, but we'll see where everything goes with that match. Overall, match was okay. Nothing to really write home about between the two of them. The match with Enzo and Big Cass. Beforehand you had the promo from Dash and Dawson, and I like Dash and Dawson as heels, because they're a throwback of heels, of guys who are actually, they're heels, but they're really, really tough guys, and they're just guys that you might not want to mess with in the sense of, I'm trying to find the words here. They're these style of heels that still get the job done. They come out there, you don't necessarily like these guys, but they go out there and they get the job done. And that's what they go for. They still beat people up, but they don't necessarily resort to being the typical heel that has to go out there and cheat all the time and everything like that, and that's how they win. No, these are just tough guys who you just happen to not like all that much. So I like the promo that they set up, but I also like the aspect that they're keeping this more aggressive style of Enzo and Cass. I like it because it makes them come off as more viable threats. Beforehand, they were very entertaining and everything like that, but you expect them to always come up short. But this more aggressive style that they come out there and give, even in their promos, makes it feel like, okay, these guys are legitimate threats towards those tag team titles in some way. And, it conveyed in the match. They were more aggressive and everything like that. It was kind of like with the Von Villains side. They were more aggressive, but we're still trying to figure out where the Von Villains are going, where Enzo and Cass, we know where they are, how their interactions are and everything like that, and you're getting a more aggressive and a more viable threat style from them at this point in time. So I ended up liking where they're going with that. Asuka's match with Serena Garrett. It was basically, Serena Garrett coming into the company just initially. They put her over a little bit inside the match, but in the end, this was more of a way of just building Asuka in this case. And, again, in the end, nothing really that much to write home about. Them just kind of building Asuka into what's going to eventually be, I'm thinking a feud with Nia Jax, but we'll see where they go. We'll see where they end up going with everything here. The announcement from William Regal about the number one contendership, because you had the controversy the week before with the number one contendership after the end of the triple threat match. It just works so perfectly for how NXT is supposed to be. Things are supposed to be settled in the ring. Well, we have this controversy with the two people who had submissions on this guy, and he tapped out. And I liked the aspect of Baron Corbin in there. It's like, why aren't you just announcing a rematch? It's like, well, technically you're out because you lost in some way. And of course, Baron's like, this is a bunch of BS, all that kind of stuff. I liked how he came off in there. I expect to see something from him in some kind of interfering manner here very soon with them. And then, of course, them announcing Joe versus Sami Zayn. And then you got the interactions beforehand with how Sami Zayn felt and, of course, how Joe felt. Perfect way of getting the different aspects. You got Sami Zayn's like, it's kind of in his hands, everything like that. You just got Joe being Joe at that point, where he's like just overly, angry with the situation. You just give him the title shot. Why isn't he just getting the title shot type feel? Doesn't say a word about it, but that's how you got the feeling from him. And then, of course, we'll see how they interact later on, a little bit later on, because they don't actually give him a reaction to William Regal saying it's like, oh, it's going to be Sami Zayn versus Samoa Joe, number one contendership match. So we'll see how everything goes off in that aspect, and we'll see where they go with those interactions before that number one contendership match. And this leads to the main event of the night, which was Apollo Crews and Finn Balor. They've been setting this one up as kind of a respect, figuring out who the better competitor was from their original match that ended with the interference of Baron Corbin and everything like that. Overall, slow starting match here. Not a bad way of going. I like this aspect of the two of them feeling each other. Making that competitors type area where they're feeling each other out. You got a lot of headlocks, a little bit of rest holds at the beginning, which eventually led to the build-up of the faster pace throughout the match. I like those kind of style matches as well. They don't have to be 100 miles an hour right off the bat all the time. They can build to that tension, and go to that faster style pace towards the end, which is what they went with here. And I thought it came off really, really well. And I like the aspect that it makes it come off a little bit different, that Finn Balor had to win with more than just the coup de grace. In there at the end, he felt like he had to put an explanation point on there, and you can make it feel like if you're looking at it in one way, it's like he's showing a sign of respect towards Apollo Crews, that he has to go that extra mile to win, or is this more of a heelish tendency or something like that? Where's Finn going with this? He had to put an extra explanation point onto the match. Like, is this something new for Finn, or is it going to be a more heelish, more aggressive type of Finn Balor towards that? Or is it just something like, I need to show respect to this guy, and I need to do this to make sure I win, because my finisher might not be enough. It wasn't necessarily enough in the first match, so let's put this explanation point on the end. So we'll see where they go with everything with Finn Balor. Obviously, they're going to probably keep Finn Balor and Apollo Crews away from each other, so we're not going to see where they're going to go with that. But what kind of style of Finn Balor are we going to get in the future? Here, and we'll see where everything goes. Overall, relatively good NXT. I wouldn't say it was a overly special one. Obviously, they set up Bayley and Carmella a little bit more through everything, and they're setting up to name the number one contender as well. And we'll see where everything goes with it. It looks like we might have another match with Dash and Dawson versus Enzo and Cass here very soon as well. So we'll see where everything goes with their stories that they have setting up, and also what are they going to be doing with the Vaughn villains as well. Like, are they going to be heels? Are they going to be faces? We'll see how they interact and go with their promos down the line here, and interact and see where their characters are actually going. So again, overall, pretty good NXT, and we'll see how everything goes through the next weeks. And that is my review for NXT this week, and I thank you guys for watching.